Nice. See what you did
You see
there.
what I did there, couldn't you?
Nice.
Get the old
Subtle.
Brexit mug out. I mean,
Sure,
Coronation mug.
your Coronation Street, yes. Coronation
Right.
Street. You got your Coronation Street mug out.
What a start to the show.
It's almost seamless, isn't it? How are you doing, Duke Philip?
Yes, I thought I'd give myself a royal upgrade. Viscount Dan Jameson. What's higher, a Viscount or a Duke?
I really should have looked this up.
I think a Duke's higher.
Oh, do you?
I think so. Well, I think so. Because the princes and all that, aren't they Dukes? They're never Viscounts.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think we probably should have researched that a little bit more before we went into it. And straight in out of the blocks. Thank you, Joe, for the appreciation. This is an extra week's worth of face fuzz growing. I'm going to keep this. I haven't decided how long for, but I am going to keep it.
Well, Joe's a man that knows about facial hair. I mean, he's got a full beard.
He is. He's hirsute. I think.
Maybe
I believe is the
tips.
Well, I'd
beard
like to,
oil or something.
I don't think I'll ever need beard oil. It's only here that it grows. But thank you, Joe. Nonetheless, lovely to have you on the stream. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm really well, Dan. Yeah, I'm certainly a lot better than I was last time we did a LinkedIn Live when I was had a little bit of a headache, but I'm on top form today. So what about yourself? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's been sort of a shorter week this week because we had our Dukes outright Viscounts. Well, we'll see by the end of this call, John. We'll see by the end of this stream. It's been a bit of a shorter week because of the bank holiday. We are blessed with 3 bank holidays this May, aren't we? We've got another one next Monday for the coronation.
We're blessed with teacher strikes.
Yes, teacher strikes, bank holidays. It's been a balancing act, but it's been good. It's been good. I'm looking forward to this weekend. What's been keeping you busy? What's been keeping you entertained?
Well, I think just the same as you, just trying to keep the work going whilst there's all of these breaks and a bit of discontinuity in our week. But yeah, it's all looking good. I think there's more business interest out there again. I think things are sort of, the wheels are oiling a little bit more. I know a lot of people that I talk to in the agencies realm have been sort of finding it a little bit hard recently, but at least in our case, I think things seem to be sort of moving a little bit more at the moment. What about you?
Yeah, say business is good. I'm aging, and I'm acutely aware of my aging as well. Let me just bore you with this before we get into the meeting.
Oh, you've got a birthday coming up. When's your birthday? It's the same days as John Experience. Don't tell me it's today and I've forgotten.
It's not today, no. But I have organised. John and I got together and we lobbied the government. We have organised a bank holiday for our birthday.
Oh yeah, cards in the post.
Yeah, thank you. Probably should have been a bit sooner, bank holiday and all that. But yeah, no, that's good. But I actually went out last night for one of my birthday presents from my in-laws, and it was to go and see Richard Jones, who is a magician that won Britain's Got Talent a few years back.
Right. Yeah.
And I felt my age because in the after the break, when he came back on stage, he said, "All right, I want you all to kind of put your arms out like this, twist your fingers around like that, kind of a warm-up exercise." I don't actually know why, but I managed to throw my shoulder out while sitting in the audience watching this guy. So that was good. That made me feel nice and old.
You like the show, but not a lot.
Yes, painful. Oh my word, John Anfield. If I just wish the season could have ended better for you. I mean, it's going okay now, but
that's a bit nasty, Dan.
It's not nasty. I'm a neutral. John knows that. I've got no skin in the Premiership game.
No. Wednesday. Anyway, what's been going on this week in the world of LinkedIn?
Well,
it's rather a big day, not just the coronation, of course, but a big day for the people of LinkedIn, as it has turned 20 years old.
I know. It's mad, isn't it? I think a couple of weeks back we were talking about how long we'd been on LinkedIn, and you beat me to the drop. by a little bit. But what's your take on how it's been celebrated or how it's been marked?
Well, I think so. There's probably a couple of things I'd like to talk about. What your kind of experience and reflections of LinkedIn are since you've started it, and then a little bit about how what LinkedIn have done themselves as a company to celebrate it.
Mm,
So maybe we could start with the other one first. So yeah, I mean, you've been on it for what, 15 years or so. I mean, how long have you been doing it? Something like that.
yeah,
You've been
it's
on
2006, I think.
2006. So you've been on it a while. What's so how? So just talk us through how that's evolved for you. I mean, why
Mm.
did you join in the first place, and how does that compare to sort of how you're using LinkedIn today?
Well, I joined because of novelty value way back in the
Right.
day. At that point, it was very much, I think, a like a job hunting platform, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You put your details up there, and if you were looking for a job and or hope to be found by other people that wanted to recruit, um, I didn't really use it at all because I wasn't in the market. I was just kind of intrigued by it.
Right.
Um, I started to become more interested in it when I was in corporate world. So that would have been maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I started to become more interested in it.
Okay.
But then it was a place to kind of amplify some of the stuff that I was working on that I could talk about
Mm,
publicly.
yeah.
And I started to build up a network of people during that time as well. Obviously, being in a big corporate, you have lots of connections that you meet. But I wasn't really actively kind of thinking about how I used it. And then probably I would say 4 and a bit years ago, um, I was introduced to a lady called Sarah Goodall
Oh yeah.
from
Yeah, I know
Tribal
Sarah.
Impact
Yeah.
by a former colleague at Vodafone actually. And I got to meet Sarah, and my eyes were opened to the world of LinkedIn as an actual platform for people that weren't necessarily just looking for a job, and as a place that could add a lot of value. And from that
I
point, I
remember
started to use it more.
you giving me a LinkedIn tip because you it was around about that time, and you just started your consultancy,
Mm,
the Set Social, and I remember you telling me that you wrote an article when you started the business explaining what you were doing, and you told
mm.
me that that got you leads in its own
Yes.
right. That article got you leads. And you know, you were sort of you were a few months into it, and it seemed to be sort of had quite a long tail effect for you. I banked that idea because I did the same thing myself when Joe and I set up, and we got leads from it straight off the bat. So I
Yeah.
think one of those things about LinkedIn is that whilst initially it was, as you pointed out, very much a job hunting platform,
Mm,
now it does sort of many more things, learning and news and winning business. I think it's great for
mm.
people like us that are running small businesses, but it's also good for big businesses too.
And of course, you've been for longer than I have, possibly longer than anybody else I've worked with. You've been kind of involved in the thought leadership piece, and trying to kind of help leaders to use the platform effectively. When did that start for you?
In terms of using it myself to kind of a
Well,
bit
use
more
helping other
deliberately.
people, yeah, sort of coaching, less
Oh, I
about new
see.
business, more sort of coaching others on it.
Well, I started doing it at Harvard, which is the agency I was at last, and we were using it more for article writing actually at that point. So you know, we'd previously been doing blogs, and then we started writing articles for people to put on LinkedIn. And back in the day, the LinkedIn posts weren't very good, were they? They were more like tweets. So there wasn't really you would share links or celebrate your successes and that within posts, but the real action was in articles and LinkedIn Pulse, they were called. And so we used to do those for clients, and I sort of got into it then, and then also found a sort of niche within that sort of business to be able to help executives work out what their messaging was and train them how to use LinkedIn and help those teams. So that's when I got the idea of actually the idea of Brightside, basically thinking, actually, I could just do this full time. This is quite good fun. I don't have to do any hiring and fill in spreadsheets and do pitches. I could just spend my life doing this, and that's how we came up with the idea. So for us, LinkedIn has been sort of quite an important platform, really. So we get a lot of value from it. So I'm going to give you also an extra question before we move on. And this is a good one for people if they're watching this live. Maybe they can put this into the comments or afterwards even. How important on a scale of 1 to 5 is LinkedIn to you personally in your professional life? So if you gave it from 1 being it's no use at all, I have no value from this, through to 5, I couldn't live without it, what would you score LinkedIn? And then what would give you an extra score if you're not 5?
That's a really good question, actually. Obviously, I'm trying not to answer this as somebody who works with people on LinkedIn, because it's obviously more important to us.
Yeah, sure.
In our day-to-day work. But I would say, as a business person, I'm going to say it's a hard 4 out of 5. It is the platform that I invest the most time on. It's the platform I feel like I get the best return from, in terms of not just the kind of the vanity metrics of engagement interactions, but also actually meaningful conversations with other people that can potentially lead to new relationships, new business, etc. So I'd say 4 out of 5.
Yeah, that's good.
What about you?
I couldn't not give it a 5. I mean, we run our business on it, but even outside of that, I think it has enormous value in so many different ways. I'm always learning new stuff on it. It's quite a nice question to ask if you're doing training for people. So I did some group training recently and asked everybody. There weren't many 5s. I don't think there were any 5s, actually. But it's quite good if you've only got an hour with people, just to try to get them to go up by 1 point, because I think that's realistic. Spend an hour with them and make them go from a 2 to a 3 or 3 to a 4, just by showing them some stuff. But that's cool. Awesome. I see John's put in some things about when we've both joined, he's found. I don't know if you pulled those up earlier.
I did, yeah. So
thank you, John, for that.
Look at this, Phil. You are just under 3.2 millionth member. I am just over
going on for 1 billion, is it?
Yeah, I'm just under 7.1 millionth, and John, amazingly, considering how much of a machine this man has become on this platform, was a little bit later, but again, still early doors in the grand scheme of things. Like you say, we were talking last week, weren't we, and saying we probably expect it to be in the order of sort of early next year by the time it gets to around about 1 billion users. So early adopters-ish, I would say, in that mix.
So let's talk a little bit about how LinkedIn has celebrated their birthday. And I'm just going to show you a couple of things that they've been doing. I think they could have done a better job. I'm just going to put that out there in terms of how they could have celebrated this. So if you switch this screen share thing on for me, that would be good.
Yeah, I can see it will be you sharing our screen. There you go. Okay, we are in the room, and I'll make that full size.
So first of all, there's a disagreement or a disparity about when the 20th birthday was. I thought it was the 5th of May. But they started going out with stuff on the 4th of May. So who knows whether it's the 5th or the 4th. But they started celebrating their 20th birthday a day early, maybe, or not. But they were just putting out things like this, just loads of graphics, 20 years of possibility, which is all quite dull. And then they've been putting out things like this. It's a little bit better, trying to get some conversation going, getting people to fill in the blank. But, it's not, considering it's LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn ads, they'll have loads of people following that. They've only got 117 and just sort of quite boring answers, really, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And then the other thing they've been doing, they had a big birthday thing in their offices, and basically lots and lots of people just took pictures of themselves in this front of this big birthday thing, which is a nice thing to do. But I think the trouble is, and other companies have this problem as well, it's all about them and their people just talking about themselves. And it doesn't get doesn't get the users involved. I think, it's such a milestone. I think they could have done something a bit more creative that got people participating in it. I mean, I had to play with it today by using their graphic in my LinkedIn Live. They could have sent loads of materials out to people, or got people interacting with it in interesting ways. So for me, it's a bit of I'll switch the old screen share off now, Dan. It's a bit of a missed opportunity. And I'd hoped that it would be something a bit bigger than that. What was your take on how they've celebrated it? Did you have any sort of thoughts, or maybe I was just being a bit humbug on it?
I feel totally underwhelmed by it. I mean, I had to go and look for it. So if I'm active on the platform again. We said this last week about Rishi Sunak and the scheduling of his live. I'm active on the platform. I'm more active than probably 99% of LinkedIn's users. I didn't see anything about LinkedIn's birthday from LinkedIn until I actually went and looked for it, because I knew it was happening anyway. So that to me says they either don't really know how their algorithm works, or they just don't see it as a priority. But I would have
it might just be that.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been doing promoted content to all of the users on the platform. I think I've seen somewhere that they've given away access to a whole load of things on LinkedIn Learning for free to celebrate their anniversary. But again, only because I knew it was there and I went and looked for specific pages, specific people that were talking about it. So yeah, it feels like it should be more of a big deal, especially given the evolution of the platform.
Yeah.
But
they could have done merch. They could have sent stuff out. They could have made some games. They could have done all sorts, really, couldn't they?
Could have done so much. Could have done some looking back at what was cool in like 20 years ago and playing into that. There's loads of things.
They did have an infographic, which was okay, but
yeah.
There we go.
John. John's just dropped in this comment here. Yeah, I think I googled it yesterday because Phil and I were talking about it. I was sure it was the 5th, and we were debating a little bit, and that's what comes up. It's the 5th, but you're left feeling a bit. So what?
Yeah. Well, there's another big event happening. Which
there is.
Will that be a so what event? You've got some thoughts, and I'll just give viewers a clue what we're going to be talking about.
Did you get it, viewer? Did you get it?
Take us through this then.
Yeah, so as we mentioned at the start, there's a bank holiday next Monday because it's in honour of the coronation of King Charles III. One thing I can tell you King Charles will not be doing, 100% sure, is live streaming the coronation on LinkedIn. Do you know why that is? He doesn't have a presence here.
Okay.
So I've been I've been doing a little bit of research. It doesn't take extensive research, so don't worry, I haven't wasted all of my time on this, but I think it's worth calling out. If you search for King Charles or HRH King Charles or his HM Charles, you will get results like this. Beta. That's lost on me. I'm not entirely sure what that refers to.
That could be a hunting reference.
Could be
people that get the grouse out of the grass, or the beaters.
It could be
not something associated with violence.
I mean, I'd like to think that if that was the meaning of this, that they would have leaned into it.
Or maybe this is a dog's account.
Could be. King Charles the Spaniel. It could be. Yeah. Well, let's go for something that's clearly not a dog then, because I think you're right. It could be a canine account. You get this, King Charles II. Now, this is actually a half-baked account of King Charles II, which shows that he's been active since 1630 on LinkedIn.
Okay.
He lists the projects that he's been involved in as the dissolution of 3 parliaments, encouraging a rebuilding program, and licensing female actresses for the first time to perform in plays, because previously they were performed by boys, those roles. There are other projects as well. You can go
Hilarious.
And look at this if you want to, but it's hilarious. The satire runs deep here.
Yeah.
But skills, political tolerance, and religious tolerance.
Okay.
Well done,
I'm
Charles
already bored of
II.
that one. What else you got?
We got Charles III,
Oh,
which
okay.
is, he's apparently the king
Right.
with an emoji, and he's posted once to ask, "Oi, mate, soup or stew?"
Okay.
Just the two followers there. Now, you may or may not think that a presence on LinkedIn is a priority for the monarch, but I'm here to argue the toss that King Charles should 100% have an
I
active
think I
presence
know
on
where you're going
LinkedIn.
with this one. When you said you were going to argue for it, I thought, what have you got? But I think I know where you're going to go with it.
Well, when you search King Charles, you get a whole load of this, but you also get a load of people called Charles King.
Mhm.
And some of them even work for King Charles or used to work for him as Prince of Wales. Um, that alone, to me, says it's worth grabbing your profile and having an official presence here so people can actually find the right you. But I think running deeper than that, we talk about leaders on LinkedIn. You can't get much more senior in terms of leadership than the monarch. And King Charles, in his role as Prince of Wales, and I dare say will continue into aspects of his role as king, he's always had a strong voice around issues that matter to society, to the economy. And I can't think of a better place for him to be sharing occasional, I'm not talking about daily updates, but updates about what he's doing, projects that he's interested in, things that his charitable organizations are behind. Um, this is a very relevant audience and a very relevant platform to build out a presence for him. And I don't really understand why there isn't a presence for him at the moment.
Hmm.
What about you?
I am not convinced by that, if I'm honest. I'd rather see him on
Okay.
TikTok doing a shuffle or cracking open some eggs that he's all got lined up or something like that. That'd be much more entertaining. Make it an entertainment medium rather than
Look,
LinkedIn. He hasn't. He's
Phil,
not.
you
He won't
know
talk
you
so much
should.
about societal issues and business and architecture and stuff like that once he's king. He's got to step back a bit from that. So I think
Well,
being on
yeah,
LinkedIn will
yes,
just tempt him to want to do more of it, won't it?
but let me counter that. So when I was at Vodafone, we had a visit from the Queen,
Okay.
and
Actually, one of the
that
buildings,
wasn't
isn't it? A Queen
documented.
Elizabeth building or something there.
No, not in the
Oh,
Newbury
okay.
HQ. But when she visited, there were a huge amount of excitement. But it was an endorsement of a British business, a
Yeah,
British
fair enough.
brand,
Yeah,
and for her to be again, if she had had a LinkedIn
she could have been
presence
tagged.
and somebody running that for her, that is the kind of thing that would be great to showcase to a broader business community that she is backing British businesses and
Just think what her
getting involved.
notifications
So
would look like after a visit to Vodafone
I think she'd probably mute
and
them.
network requests
Yes.
and
Yeah, I think I'd put her
the
on.
notes that people would add. To try.
I would say I was probably
We have three people in
talking about
common.
King Charles. I think if we said, go on creator mode, Your Highness, switch off your notifications, don't bother putting it on your mobile phone. It's probably not worth it. But I think, King Charles III could become a top voice on LinkedIn very quickly. I have a lot of confidence
Yeah,
in
but
that.
he
Were
can't just be
his
on
team
it.
to lean
Like
into
the
it.
Rishi thing you criticised last week for saying, he's on it but not engaging. Once you're on it, then there's an expectation that you're actually going to use it. So
No, no. Let me just not let you completely rewrite history. I criticised for the way it was executed,
okay,
but I did say kudos for being there in the first place because actually we need more people in
yeah,
positions like that to be utilising the platform and showing that they are there. My hope is that if it's not Rishi, then another leader will take notes, not necessarily directly from me,
yeah.
but from feedback that's received and start to use it in a more interactive format. But actually starting something there would be a huge step forward.
Well, I think the only way of
But
settling this,
let us,
Dan, is to let people decide in the comments whether King Charles should be on LinkedIn or not. I think
I agree.
that's the way of settling this. So, well, after the show,
Yeah,
we'll see
and
what
not
the
just a
comments.
yes or no, not just a yes or no. Let's have a one line why you think he should or
Yeah.
should not be on
Okay.
there. But yes, throw that one into the mix for us. So last but by no means least, wanted to touch on social selling, Phil.
Oh, okay.
What did you want to talk about this time round?
Yeah, I thought you had some bits as well, but yeah, social
Oh, I
selling.
do. They're
I've
not
just
social
got
selling folk.
a sort of observation really that came from a question that I spotted on LinkedIn. I'll put the link in the
Mm.
show notes or the comments afterwards, and it was really sort of looking at recommendations for social selling and how people could do that better. And yeah, they're all of the best arguments had already been said. But the thing that wanted to add was how people can use both the public settings within LinkedIn, i.e., posting organically, and then how people can then use the DM, the private or dark social side of things in tandem. Because what I've noticed, I don't know if you've seen the same thing, is that people tend to put much more emphasis into what's going out in the public realm. And I think a lot of the goodies
Mm-hmm.
are happening in direct messages. And there's some things that you can do in terms of how you can both synchronize those things. So if you're talking about something publicly, then sending people private messages about that same thing could be useful, or about how you're doing your connection requests or how you're using video. And it just seems to me to be pretty much an untapped area. I don't know if that chimes with you, or whether you've got anything you'd add to that, or any other sort of tips really around social selling that don't really get sort of as much airtime as perhaps they should.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that there's a lot of emphasis that's placed on what goes out publicly, and I think that's logical, isn't it? Because that's the things that people can see.
Yeah.
But I think probably the strongest case for kind of blending the public and the private exchanges really kind of consciously is that's your way to defeat any algorithmic issues that you might be facing. So
Okay.
you're worried about whether or not the right kind of people are actually seeing your content, send it to them directly.
Yeah.
If it's relevant. That's not like a spam out to thousands of people in one go. But if if there is a specific individual in a specific organization that you believe would genuinely benefit from some of the insights that you've managed to pull together, send it to them directly. If you're connected, that's really easy. If you're not connected, you can look at things like InMail, although you and I both have a degree of skepticism around how effective that is in reality. But that's the one thing that you can do to maximize the chances of the right people seeing the kind of stuff that you need them to see.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about control. It's a bit like the email argument, isn't it? If you have an email newsletter, it's your kind of domain and you own it, which is true. But yeah. I think also some of that same principle can be applied to direct messages as well, and that you know it's targeted at an individual, and actually sort of putting a bit of effort into it as well, because then you can be really targeted to that them as an individual and their particular problems that you might have identified or researched or found out. So and I think if using things like video, which I know you've had a bit of a play with as well, like gets amazing results. So
video message, audio notes, personalized text, 100%. And if you push back is, well, that takes too much time, ask yourself how much you would actually like to make a positive impact on the individual that you want to engage with. Because if it takes too much time for you, maybe they're not the right person to be trying to engage with in the first place. Point. So there were a couple of other things I just wanted to mention at the end. One is collaborative articles. So I've been chatting about those for a little while. I've experimented with it, but
you're a top voice, Dan.
I am a top voice, allegedly, for having one thing that got upvoted a couple of times. But then my whole kind of activity around that had a hiatus because all of a sudden I couldn't contribute to anything.
Yes, they froze it, didn't they?
And it turns out it was a wider issue. It wasn't just me being persecuted. It was across a whole raft of users. So If you have tried to contribute to collaborative articles and it's kind of fallen flat where you haven't been able to see how you can contribute, it might be worth revisiting that. Let us know if you do it. Let us know how you get on, what benefits you get from it, but it's worth going back because they have allegedly fixed it now. And then the other thing is, you know, I'm kind of the arch pragmatist, and I keep telling you that I'm not an early adopter.
Yeah, I think you're proving yourself wrong on this one quite a lot at the moment, Daniel.
Yeah, it's not good for the brand. There is a new platform that's in private beta at the moment called Blue Sky, which has been developed by Jack Dorsey, formerly of Twitter. And I've not got onto that private beta yet. I have signed up for it because this is one that I'm actually genuinely interested by. You know, we've talked about this in the past. Long before Elon got involved in Twitter, I've been of the view that the value that you can get out of that as a platform is just, for the average user, is just, it's not great. Yeah. It's great for researching a couple of things, but actually, you know, you don't get a very good return on your kind of content, your activity. You have to spend a lot of time on there, be present to respond, etc., etc. So I've kind of put that to the back of my list of platforms to invest time in. But I'm really interested in Blue Sky.
So what's different about it? What's the USP?
Well, I would love to tell you, but I can't because I don't have it yet. But my understanding is it is like Twitter, but how Twitter used to be. Do you remember that? Back in the earlier
I love Twitter.
days.
It was my go-to platform. That was my score of a 5 platform. But
exactly,
it's gone down the toilet. So
So what I've read about it is it's kind of it's a step back to those earlier days of Twitter, and if it is, it could be a real game changer. I mean, other platforms have come along and haven't really grabbed people's attention, mainly because they're too complicated to use, and things like Mastodon. Still can't get my head around exactly how that works, and if I can't, then millions of other people aren't going to either. So I'm genuinely intrigued by that. So keep an eye out on Blue Sky.
When you get it, and give us a demo or talk us through it.
100%. I will break cover with that.
Good.
And there was one more thing I wanted to do. I realised we've run over, and that was because it's John's birthday, John Esperian's birthday on Monday. Wanted to firstly say happy birthday, John. But also, John does not do a whole lot of LinkedIn lives in the public domain.
He hasn't got any time. He's so busy doing everything else.
Well, you'd say that, but John has made time on I think it's the 25th of May. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he is doing a public LinkedIn Live. He does a lot in his kind of private groups or within his community that he's created. But if you want to ask somebody who really understands the LinkedIn platform inside out and really granular detail, questions about how to use it effectively, it's worth following John and signing up to join in that Q&A, I think. But I think personally, lots of people will get a huge amount of value out of that session. And it's great to see John doing public lives as well.
Excellent. Good tip.
So we have overrun very, very slightly. And that leaves me to just one more thing to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for joining us.
You're not going to sing God Save the King?
That's probably for the next stream of discussion on that.
You know words there.
But... yeah, so after you've said goodbye, Phil, if you could put yourself on mute, and then we can lull people out of the live stream with some more pastoral undertones.
Should have had the national anthem done.
Next time.
Cheerio.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.